All right, we'd like to welcome all of you to another session of Quick Fix Golf Online with a webinar. And we got a bunch of fine folks listening in tonight. And our topic tonight is going to be Ping versus Callaway. And I've got on the line here Jim Mason, who is, of course, a Ping staff member. Oh, and there's Jim's golf course, the Pendleton Golf Club, which is like playing golf in Scotland without the cost of the airfare. And the course is in pretty good shape right now, even for wintertime.
Yeah, it's in great shape.
Well, the greens just do so much better in the winter here. You know, we live in an area that's very difficult. Anybody who doesn't know this. This is probably one of the most difficult places in the United States to maintain a golf course because it's not quite hot enough for Bermuda and it's not quite cool enough for the Bent. You know, what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough thing. But there's Jim right there, graduate of West Virginia University. We like to make fun of that every time. We got to get some new material for that, right? There's Patterson Sports Park, where we do some of the private lessons where they have right now. They're all you can hit for $9.95. You can't beat that deal. Just hit them till your hands bleed. And there's the Mad Cuban talking to you right there. Now, let's look at – I got to switch programs here. Like I really know what I'm doing with this thing. Here's Ping. And then, of course – here is Callaway. And Callaway has, I think they've really improved this year, big time. I was really surprised. These are some really nice stuff there. And Ping, you know, Ping's always been good. They're pretty steady. But they haven't been known for their drivers as much as their irons. Am I right, Jim, or is that?
Yeah, I've never – they've actually come a long way with their drivers. I never liked their drivers. They were pretty much an iron company for years, and they made great irons, but they're not great drivers. But I think they're starting to catch up now with their drivers. They're getting a lot better.
Well, if we look right here, and I'm going to be polite here, we'll do Ping first. That's basically because Jim's bigger than I am. Not around the middle anymore, but taller anyway. But here's your whole line of drivers, right? The G25, you got the Answer, this I-20, the G20. This G15's been around for a while, I think, has it not?
Yeah, that's a couple generations ago.
You know, what's this Serene? Oh, I guess that's for the women or something?
That's the ladies, yeah.
Okay. And when you click on this G25, and you look over here, look at the head weights, 205 grams. Now, everybody's been talking about going lighter, which 200 grams is sort of standard. And you got Cleveland and all these guys trying to go down to 193. They're up at 205. Yep. What's with that?
I don't know. I haven't really read any of the information on it, but I personally like a little heavier head weight. You feel like you have something in your hand instead of something that's so light.
Uh-huh. And that's what's been going on. See, the math is correct, that by lightening the club by 10 grams, you can create another 1 mile an hour of ball speed, which equals 3 yards. But the problem is the players on tour won't play with it. And I think you're going to understand why when you see what we're going to go through here tonight. Here's the lie angle, which doesn't mean a lot with a driver, but look how long they make these things. Callaway's just as bad, 45, 75. I mean, Maron. Mm-hmm. That's like holding onto a tiger's tail and trying to rip it around you. I mean, that's really, really, really huge.
It's like, remember a few years ago, I guess it's been about a decade ago, they're going with the real long clubs, the real long shafts, like the 47-inch shafts.
Yeah, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
They've gotten back away from that.
Well, you notice one thing. All these companies now have like the little screw right here. You see this? Where's well, I can't use my little pointer on this thing. But they all gone to where we can shut the face 1 degree, open the face 1 degree. You know, Maron. I mean, what a head case. Could you imagine playing golf with somebody and they're probably in a foursome in front of you, and every hole they're trying to loosen that thing out of the drive anybody out of their mind. But
don't try that in a tournament, because you can't do that in a tournament.
I know, but who plays in a tournament? Does anybody play in tournaments? You can do it at Captain's Choice, right? Who's going to care?
Right.
Anyway, look at the torques on these shafts. And this is a stock shaft from Ping. Right. 5.5. 5.9. So if anybody doesn't know what's going on here, the tip of the shaft is where the torque is, and that's where the club twists. And when it's soupy like that, it feels better to you because it feels a little whippier, feels like it has a little kick to it. There's only one problem. If you don't time that release or kick exactly right, that club face can be off. And if you're off by 1 degree at impact, when that ball goes all the way out there 250 yards or so, or 230 or whatever it is you're hitting it, that's about, the right edge of the rough. Am I right there, Jim? Or
you're absolutely right.
Close somewhere along. And look at this. They put Tour X Stiff 4.1. Okay, now I'm going to show you the difference right now. Here's an education right here. Here I've gone to GolfWorks. This is where club builders go. Knuckleheads like me that make golf clubs. And, I got into it and I just felt like, hey, I got to learn something about this because myself, you would not believe, like back when I played on tour, nobody knew anything about golf clubs except for a very small group of people. And touring pros didn't know. I remember Trevino would buy 30, 40 drivers at every tour stop and hit them all and then leave them there. Trying to find that one magic drive. I'm serious. Arnapano was like that. They'd buy drivers every town they went to. Somebody had a driver they knew they could sell it to them. They'd try it on the range. They didn't like it. They'd throw it away. I mean, these guys have so much money. They know what to do with it. Now, here is a UST shaft, which you've probably seen Jim Furyk play with, and you've seen, what's that other kid that's real tall, has a long putter? Adam Scott, right? Yeah. He used the shaft. Now, this shaft is only a $59 shaft. So when you see these Diamante type shafts that are $300, $350, don't fall for that that gag too much because a lot of that's show business. Now, you look at this. Here is stiff, even stiff and XNR, wood, 75 grams, right? Look at the torque, 2.2. Now, the length of this shaft is 46 inches in raw. You can cut it to the length that you want, see?
Right.
Parallel specs here. When it says bend point, that's where it bends up in the shaft. It says mid to high, which means you're going to get a little lower trajectory because if the bend point in the shaft is down near the bottom, near where the head is, it'll add loft to the golf club because the shaft is bending, and then the ball goes higher. So you might have an 8.5 degree driver, but it's actually 9.5 or 10 when you're actually hitting it. And tip stiffness, it says here medium. Now, right here is the tip size is 335. I would like to go for the 350 because if I have a larger diameter tip down at the bottom, I'm going to have less torquing. The torquing is what really messes me up as far as being accurate. A typical steel iron shaft has a torque value of about 1.8 degrees. And that's why guys on tour will not use graphite in their irons because the torque factor is too high. They can't be accurate. So if you want to be accurate, you want a set of iron shafts. You don't want a set of graphite shafts. Capiche? In fact,
Absolutely.
Watch. Yeah, right. Let's go over here at club shafts and let's look at. Well, let's go to Aldila. They're a big name when it comes to making shafts. Let me see. Let me put up here. Just put your little hand up if you want to ask a question as we go along. But let's look at that's a wood shaft. Let me go iron shaft. Where's an iron shaft? Wood shaft, wood shaft, wood shaft. Come on. Let's go next here. Look at that. It says you're number one, Jim. All right, hold on. Let me see here. Hybrid shaft. Those are wood shafts. Oh, here you go, iron shaft. Now let's go to this one right here. Yeah. See, these kind of sites will show a lot more. Look at that torque. Look in the woods, 5.3. Look at the irons, 4.7, 4.6. How in the heck are you going to be accurate with that iron? There ain't no way. See the difference, folks? Now, that other graphite shaft, that was a wood shaft that was 2.2. Look at this, 5.3. Hey, look what it's called. The Aldila low torque graphite. They must work in Congress. You know, they make a bill. The Affordable Care Act, and it just costs us 50% more. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. How could they come with this? How could they, with a straight face, call this the Aldila low torque graphite iron shaft? See, but most folks don't know. But now the people that are listening in tonight, they know.
Right.
That's what you get for hanging around us. You have to put up with the two of us to be able to get all this information. We're like the click and clack of golf. You ever listen to that show? You're like, a lady calls and what's wrong with your car, lady? Goes, it goes like this, room, room, room. Hey, you know what happened to me? I wake up yesterday, start my car, and I heard this fluttering sound, this sound. I went, wow, oh no, don't tell me this jalopy I've got has finally died. And I opened up the hood, and there was 5 billion leaves in my car. The squirrels were making a nest. They did it in one night.
How'd they get under the hood?
Yes.
How'd they get under the hood?
They're probably coming through the bottom of the car.
Huh.
You know, right there where I have that hole where I put my feet down for brakes.
Like Fred Flintstone.
It was filled with leaves. I couldn't believe it. I was laughing so hard I couldn't believe it. So, anyway. So there's the difference in torque is really, really important. Because you don't want that club twisting. In fact, hold it. Let me show you what that looks like. I think I can show you what that looks like. Hold on a second here. I'm sorry. Wait a second here. Let me go, yeah, here. Let me go, nope, that's the wrong one. Let me open here, if you'll put up with me a second here. That might be, no, yes, no, yes, yes. All right, see this, folks? Now, hold on, wait a minute. Let me get, there's the one I want. See that club kicking back right here? Now, they're not talking here, they're talking about the gear effect, meaning that there's a roundness on the face of the golf club. But right here, when you hit that ball, that club recoils back a little bit, sort of like a shotgun. If it's out near the toe, because there's a bulge on the face, it makes the ball rotate counterclockwise, so it's almost like an auto correction device. You hit the ball out in the toe and the ball actually hooks. You hit it in the heel, it actually fades. But no matter what you do, even if you catch it right in the kisser, there is some torquing effect. So if you've got the tip of this shaft right along in here, let me, how can I, oh, here we go. Now I can use my pointer. Even if you catch that ball right in the kisser, there's some kickback effect, and if the tip of the shaft from here to there is a torque effect of like 5.0, that puppy's going wangos way over here. If it's 2.0, it's hardly moving at all. All right? Does that make some sense for everybody? Now, let's move on here. Does anybody have a question? Because it's good to at least hear from somebody. We don't know whether we're even still there. Maybe everybody dropped dead and they left. They said, I had enough of this. What are you kidding me? Wait a minute, where am I going? Oh, I know. Hold it. Switch programs. There we go. Now, let's go over here to Callaway, and we're going to see that they're just as much a culprit if you take their new outrageous hot driver, as they say right here, and let's click on specs. And here's something I was a little disappointed in. Fear not, my good friends, because as your fitter with Callaway and Jim over there with the Ping, we will not sell you the company line per se. We're going to do what's right for you. Now look at this. Here's the X-Hot driver, and then they call the X-Hot Pro driver. But notice that the hot driver is all draw bias. Why? Because they think all you characters out there are going to slice. 9 out of 10 people slice. Look at how long it is. 46 inches. Too long. It almost guaranteed to slice. That's just too long. That's not going to work. It's just too long. And you look at this, and look what they put on here for torque. Mid. Now, what does that tell you? Absolutely nothing. Now, Project X tells you it's a very, very good shaft. The quality of the shaft's very good. But it doesn't tell us what the real torque is. Then you come over here, and they have the X-Hot Pro driver that supposedly would be built for a little better player. And notice he doesn't have the weighted bias. The weighted bias means, basically, going back over here to where we were. Nope. Whoops. You dumb Cuban. This is too much technology for a Cuban. I want you to know this. Where was, yeah, here we go. Oh, when you put more weight in the heel, the more the weight is closer to the axis, the more this club will do this. It'll turn over. The more it'll do this right here. See? So they put more weight in the heel because they don't think you'll ever get the club face to that point. They think you're going to be about like that because you're not going to rotate your forearms over. Now, that's not going to be your case because I'm going to nag you until you do. I say, turn your forearms over, you knucklehead. See, so, is it, oh, how do you, I know there's, oh, here we go, erase all ink. Okay, there we go. See, so that's why the weight bias is in the heel. So if you notice, like some of those Callaway drivers, you have those two weights, and I always take the 12 gram, put it in the heel, and the 2 gram in the toe, depending on the player. All right, so let's go back to where we were, which was Callaway. You see those are neutral. Notice how they're a 1/4 of an inch shorter. Isn't that interesting? Very interesting. Yeah. Not only that, look at this. 460 gram head for the hot driver, 435 for the pro driver. Now, why did they make the pro driver smaller? Well, let's go back to our little diagram. Whoops. Wrong one again. You son of a gun. Hold on here. Sorry, gang. Put up with me here a second. All right. Now we go here. Here it is. Because the more you have weight, where's our pointer option? Here it is. Let's say this was the 435 head, and if we measured from this to that shaft, and that was 2 inches. I'm just making this up. Now you got a 460 head, which is this big, meaning it weighs 460 grams. Or excuse me, it's 460 cc's in volume. Not 460 grams. You never pick it up. Anyway, now you're an additional 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch further away on the outer tip from the axis. The further that tip is out, the more your club is liable to do this. It's liable to lag. Now, why would they give you a club with a bigger head on it that would cause lag that just a minute ago they put a bunch of weight in the heel to get you to come around? Well, what they probably do is just weight it up even a little more, which is why you saw some of those head weights were up to 205 grams. And with a softer tip, more of this happens, so it sort of makes up for it. I don't think so, but they think so. See, a road player would say, no, you got to be kidding, I don't want that. So that's what we try not to give it to you. How do I, oh, there it is, erase all ink, okay? Does any of this make any sense? Let me see if we have any questions here. I can't see the, hold it, screen, switch programs. Let me look over here and see if there's anybody right now. Anybody got a question? Raise your hand. Now, Gene, who's on the line here, is one heck of a bowler. So he knows these bowlers today, they walk into a bowling alley with like 6 bowling balls. Because they got one ball that does this, they got one ball. In fact, let's put Gene on the... Gene, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, good. Tell us why, you guys that are bowlers, I want to ask you your average because I don't want you to have to brag on everything. But I know you're really, really good. You've done it for a long time, right?
Right.
How come you guys carry 6 different balls or something when you go bowling now?
Well, changing conditions for one. The lane is different. It can be dry or wet. The balls can have different surfaces so they can grab the lane versus slide on the lane.
Right.
Sometimes it'll be drilled differently. You might want it to turn more or not.
Do they ever have the weights inside the ball in a different position?
Yeah, for the turn. So if you want it to go down further before it turns, you position the weight one way. And if you want it to turn right away and turn the whole time, you position a different way. Or if you just want it to be straighter, then you can position another way.
Okay, now, many moons ago, all the way back to the Don Carter days, maybe even earlier, did they just bowl with one ball?
As far as I remember, they just had one with them, but like they didn't throw a different ball on a second shot. You know, a lot of times they take out a different ball to throw it a spare.
Right.
I don't remember in the old days. But
Well,
I believe that they did have multiple balls. They just didn't. They maybe knew when they went to a tournament which one to bring with them, and I don't remember them bringing multiple ones with them.
Well, Jim, what was your very first set of golf clubs you ever owned?
Wow, I think they were Wilson staffs.
You didn't have a Sam Snead Blue Ridge, or you're too young?
Yeah, I think they were Wilson staffs.
When I was a kid, there wasn't a kid alive that didn't have a set of Sam Snead Blue Ridge. You could get them at the department store, you know, Burdines or something, and everybody had those. And all the clubs were the same, and all the balls were pretty much the same. And that's where I think we've gone in the same direction as the bowling. If you keep designing into the golf club different offsets, I think you lose some of the real challenge of the game by doing that. I don't know. What do you think, Gene, from a bowler's perspective? Have you taken some of the real talent out of the game by having 6 different balls and having the ball change for the situation?
Well, the technology has made it so much easier to do well, but you know the good people have gotten better even more than So the good bowlers that used to bowl a 200 average are now bowling 230 and 240 averages. So it brought everybody up to higher scores. But yeah, it just made it so much easier if you get the ball drilled right and it's got the right surface. You know, the zone you can drop the ball in is much wider. You can have a 5-inch wide area that if you drop it anywhere in there, it's still going to get to the pocket. Or back in the old days with the old rubber balls, you had a very narrow line that you had to hit a 1-inch spot or you were going to miss.
Now, what about when you guys align? You always line up with the little arrows, right? Or what do you use?
Arrows, dots, or boards. I go down to the board level because I think we talked about that one day. I like to pick a target that's closer to me, and the first set of dots is down the lane several feet. So I follow the dot to a board maybe 1.5 feet past the foul line, and I shoot for that board because it's easier to hit a closer target.
Now, if most of us would use that strategy in our alignment, we'd do so much better. And you got to figure we have another dimension, which is we're not lined up in a straight bowling alley every time. Imagine if your lineup was straight, but it was a dog-leg bowling alley, And a lot of the tee boxes are not designed perfectly lined up for where you need to go either. So it plays with your eyes and gets you misaligned. But we could really learn a lesson from you guys that are bowlers that you gotta make a little mark up in front of you and get the golf club path going over that mark. Feel like the ball's going right over that mark. So, well, thanks, Gene. That helps a lot, buddy.
You're welcome.
Lions will come back next year. Hang in there.
I hope so.
Now you can root for the Tigers. All right. Any other questions here or anything? Oh, Jim's got a question. Yeah, Jim.
Why do we have graphite shafts in our hybrids and woods and drivers if they're not as accurate?
Okay, that's an excellent question. And that's been one of I don't know how you feel about this, Jim, but I always have said that I think the hybrid should be part of my irons, not part of my woods. And that being the case, it should be a steel shaft, not a graphite. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too, because really you're replacing a long iron with it. So,
well, you're taking the hybrid head, which is a smaller head, lower center of gravity, and the center of gravity is further back. Let me see if I can do a little. Here we go. In other words, if you have an iron and the iron is only this wide, where if you have a hybrid and it goes back to here, the center of gravity is further back and lower. So because it's lower than the center of the golf ball, it makes the ball underspin more, so it goes higher. So people that have a problem getting a 4-iron or 3-iron up in the air the hybrid's easier to get up in the air. Now, if you put a graphite shaft in it, you could make it a little longer. And if there's been so much bombardment on the longer the club, the further you're going to hit it, which is not necessarily true, but whatever the market believes, that's what they're going to go with. Just like forgiveness, which is not true. You know, they try to put the graphite shaft in it because they think you guys want to whack the daylights out of it. I would not. If I have a hybrid, and I have to admit I have a hybrid in my bag that has a graphite shaft in it because I haven't bothered to do anything. But if I was playing competitive golf, I'd yank that shaft out of there in 2 minutes. And I would have the same exact shaft that I have in my irons. And I'd have it exactly a half-inch longer. If I was carrying a 3 hybrid, I'd have it a half-inch longer than my 4-iron. I wouldn't have it a full inch longer because they'll make them a little longer. You know, I want that club to just, all I'm looking for is a little more height. That's the only reason why I'm using that hybrid. And in most cases, what I would use a hybrid with, and I'm going to turn over to Jim, see what he would do, but I think of the 19-degree hybrid as a shorter 5-wood. I don't think of it as, I wouldn't have a hybrid as part of my irons anyway. So there's my excuse that if I have a 3 hybrid that's 19 degrees, that's the same loft as a 5-wood. As far as I'm concerned, it's a short 5-wood. It's not quite as long as a 5-wood would be, but it's more accurate. Now, what about you, Jim?
Yeah, I have a 21-degree hybrid and I have an 18-degree. And the 18-degree, I pretty much, like you said, I use that off the fairway, kind of like a fairway wood, going into a par 5 or whatever, or a long par 4. The 21-degree, I would use on a par 3, on a long par 3, going into a green.
All right. Well, same thing, but I would prefer to have a steel shaft. And now with the driver, now let's go back and look at where did oh no, that's not what I wanted. Right here. If we go back and we look at, that was the Aldila. Let's go back and look at UST. Let's go to UST. And we look at that shaft. Let me see. I think it's the V2 Pro 4 Series. Yeah, probably somewhere along in there. No, it's not that one. Yeah, it's going to be the V2. Let's see. Tour flighted wood shaft, 65 gram. Wow, it's tour flighted. Where did it go? Let's go here. It's tour flighted. Unbelievable. Where's what the heck are they doing to me here? Well, let's do this. Let's look at some of these $320 shafts. Here's Diamana, $274.99. All right, that's before you even put it in.
Low ass.
That's before you even install it. All right, so there's $274. Now, that ain't so hot. It's got a torque of 3.6. But to answer your question, Jim, the other one we saw before, the UST, was 2.2. Now, look at this. This is $300 plus installed. And it's got a 335 tip, medium to firm, medium to firm, medium to high, mid to high. So 3.6 torque. Boy, that's a lot of money for not any real good torque there. Let me see. Let me see if it's 2.2 TRQE. Let's see if they have it that way. Oh, here you go. The Aldila NV Pink. Now that's got to have that's got to have a torque factor. Here you go. 4 point. Jim, we've got a great shaft for you, buddy. Not you, but Jim Repo. Where is this? Jim, want me to install these pink shafts in there for you tomorrow?
No, thank you. No, thank you.
Now, wait a minute. Hold it. I can get a matching grip right here.
Yeah, I'm sure you can.
Debbie would like them.
Yeah.
Let's see. Debbie, let's see if we can get Debbie. Debbie, do you want some pink shafts?
I like pink.
I don't blame you. This thing right here, this is for the little cancer thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. I know the football, they've been going crazy for that. They have it on all the players and stuff. Are you learning something tonight, or is this too much?
No, it's good.
All right, let me see if I can find. But you understand what I'm talking about with the stiffer the tip. You know, even with the ladies, they overdo the idea of making it like a fishing rod. And then they want to know why they're having trouble hitting it crooked. They think it feels better to use if it's like a fishing rod, really, really soft. And the problem with that is then the actual tip is so soupy that, you know, the ball goes a little off the right, a little off the left, and you're thinking there's something wrong with your swing. It just might be the shaft didn't time up to the right point. So, you know, you got to take that into consideration. All right. All right, she just keeled over right there. Okay, now, any other questions out there? Now, Jim, you're a tall guy. How long are your clubs?
My driver or my irons?
Well, all of the above. Are they irons?
My irons are a half-inch plus a half-inch, and my driver's standard. I always like standard woods because I feel like I lose control if the driver gets too long. So I just like a standard length driver.
Yeah, 44.5 inches is the longest I'll go.
Yep.
And that's only because of graphite, you know. A lot of people don't know that Butch Harmon used to argue with Tiger all the time about keeping the 43.5-inch steel shafted driver, and Tiger didn't want to do it. That probably was a big mistake. Huge mistake. All right, so what else could we go over here between? Let's go back and look at ping.
Let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Don't you think the manufacturers are hurting themselves by coming out with this new equipment every 6 months? I think it confuses a lot of the golfers out there because, you know, especially like TaylorMade, seems like every 6 months they've got a new driver on the market.
Well, let's ask somebody here. Greg, what do you think of that question?
I don't think they're really hurting themselves because, kind of like with the bowlers, my wife and both my kids really love bowling. I'm the spastic in the family. I'm kind of like the magnetic of the house. But in my opinion, the knowledge and the ability to use the technology, and I'm going to use the analogy of bowling, knowing what lane conditions to use, what kind of ball, and so forth, and how the conditions changed. You know, golf is, in my own personal experience, which is not very good, the knowledge to be able to apply the technology is very important, maybe not as much as the athletic ability to be able to, you know, properly hit the ball where you want it to go. But if you can compensate for inadequate athletic ability with technical knowledge, then that should be something that you could exercise to improve your game.
No,
So I don't think the pros are. I'm sorry. I don't think the manufacturers are really hurting themselves by constantly introducing new technology because you know they do it you know to make money, of course, and people will spend as much money as they possibly can on golf, and the manufacturers know that, so they might as well take advantage of it.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. What do you think of that, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I can see it both ways. It's just, if I was to buy a $400 driver and then 6 months later the same company came out with a new and better driver, I'd be kind of disappointed.
Well, we put up with that with computers. I mean, you get an iPhone, and 10 minutes later they got the iPhone 5. Now what do? Take your iPhone 4 and throw it away?
There's constantly a new generation out there, always looking to buy something. You might have to wait till Father's Day or your birthday before you get it, but you know, I work in the computer industry, and I know exactly what you're talking about in that regard, even in our own household.
Sure. I mean, you know, you want something else that goes faster and better, and, you know. Now, the other thing is, same thing with the computer, is having enough knowledge to even know. I remember when I got my first laptop, the guy sold me this laptop that was there was what the heck was it? I think it was an 88 or something. And this was back in the old days, and he put the first Windows on it. And it was only really meant to work with DOS, but I didn't know the difference. And every time I hit a little button or something, the thing would go about 2 miles an hour, and I was going crazy. My wife came in the room. She says, "You want me to give you something to drink?" I said, "Get out of here before I hurt you." So I'm going to hurt somebody in a minute. And I didn't realize till afterwards what a sap. The guy told me this thing. Well, he probably didn't know what he was doing either. So you got to know, and that's what we're sort of trying to do with the rest of you guys, at least give you the knowledge to understand that these golf club companies don't always necessarily tell you the whole story. So that's the whole idea behind this tonight. But that's an interesting perspective, Greg, and you're right. You're right to a point. You and Jim are both right in that. How does my item I just bought devalue that quickly? But it's happening in the computer industry the same way. It was a $2,000 laptop that right now you can buy for $599.
Same with cars as well. I mean, we have 2 Toyotas in the house that are 6 and 10 years old respectively, and the dealership is always trying to get us to trade them in, and we're always saying, these are fine. And the golf clubs I've had for many years, to me they're fine. The fact that they don't make the ball go straight, I view as more my fault, not the club fault.
Well, there's a melding of the two. There's a melding of the two, and I tell you what, I'm gonna get Denny on here in a second. He just bought a new set of clubs, and I can tell you something. It's sometimes when you've been playing with the wrong configuration, and you've adjusted to that. Now all of a sudden you get the right configuration, and you find that now there's an additional adjustment to get where you should have been in the first place. I mean, thanks for your comments there, Greg. That was good, buddy. Let's look at Denny. Are you there? Well, Denny.
Hey.
Are you getting more used to your clubs now, or are you still arguing with them?
I feel like I'm making progress, but then I go to the range, and then it seems like 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards.
All right, and you've only had them a little while. I mean, you got them at the right time of the year. Plus, understand that is a player's configuration. That's a really a good head. Jim Mason, listen, you know that black. Let me show it to you. I can show it to you online here. I think they've. Whoops. It's a head design they developed for a better player. Let me see where. Well, they won't have it on the front because. Oh wait, hold on. No, it would be strictly at here. I'll tell you where I can find it. Shop. Because it's last year's model. Oh well, I thought I could. They must be all gone. But it's a smaller head, a more squared off sole, and the problem was Denny's lie angle was off by 4 or 5 degrees. I mean, that's a lot.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Yes. So, but he learned how to play with those clubs he had before.
Right.
But he lifts up and out of it just a little bit as he goes through the ball. So as he lifts up and out, that actually brings that toe up on that club that was too flat for him before, and he would hit it. But then what happens when he goes with his new clubs and he pulls out just a little bit? Correct me if I'm wrong, Denny, but you should be catching quite a few shots out near the toe of the golf club. Is that correct?
That's the bias. Yeah, that's the
Right.
bias. The nice thing about the black face though is you can see the ball mark, so you get feedback right away.
Well, you just got to stay down with it longer. Got to keep that right shoulder down as long as you can through the shot, and it will work around. But that's just a lesson to everybody too. That sometimes it's not like magic. All of a sudden, the right configuration works for you because if you've been, how long did you have those other clubs?
4 or 5 years.
I mean, it's a long time.
Yeah.
So just be patient and hang in there because you've got an excellent, excellent shaft, as good a shaft as I think you could ask for. He has in his golf clubs the, let me see, aha, okay, hold it. Here we go. Now, what I can't figure out is why, this is a Japanese company, Nippon Golf Shaft. Why they call them Nippons? It's beyond me.
That's that one.
What were they thinking? Let me see. This is the 950, which is what he has. 950. Yeah, this is an excellent shaft. Really good shaft. These Japanese, I'll tell you got to hand it to them. They make good stuff. Mid bend point yields a mid-high launch profile. Constant weight system for uniform feel with each iron. You know, you're trying to have twin brothers and twin sisters. 97-gram shaft designed for golfers of all skill levels who find traditional steel products too heavy to swing naturally. So if you're looking at 95 grams, 97 grams, as I said here, that's not that much more than a graphite shaft, but with much less torque and consistent torque. These will all be at about 1.8 degrees torque. It doesn't show on there because anybody who knows they're all 1.8 degrees. So, because this is more club builders that look at this kind of stuff, not necessarily the general public. And so you got twin brothers and twin sisters as far as torque is concerned, and your weight is only, in some cases, if I were using a graphite shaft, I'd be using a 95-gram shaft, so I would say it weighs the same as graphite. But it doesn't really. Probably the typical graphite shaft for irons is 85 grams, so it's maybe 10 grams heavier. Big deal. But you've got a much better product. So just hang in there, Danny. You're going to be all right, buddy. I promise. All right, any other questions? If not, we'll call it a night. Did you guys learn something, I hope?
I know I did.
How about you, Tony? Did you learn something?
No,
Tony went to sleep with his wallaby. Tie me wallaby down, sport. Tie me wallaby down. How does it go?
No, I wouldn't know. That's Australian.
I know, but it's close enough for us. We don't know the difference. We're just a bunch of dumb Yanks over here. Unbelievable. Oh, did that guy get a hold of you?
No, I haven't heard anything, brother.
You will. He's going to New Zealand. I sent him an email with your email, and he'll email you off. And for any of you folks that are watching here, Tony here is, listening in and watching, I guess. Tony here is in New Zealand, and we've already got one of our students that's going over there to see him. That's out of D.C., plays over at Pendleton with Jim. And we wanted to try and put together a little golf trip or something to New Zealand. I think that would be a riot. And we had one night, you can go on the website and you can see the webinar we did with Tony, and some of the pictures of the golf courses out there are just absolutely magnificent. It is a beautiful, beautiful area. And especially, I bet your snorkeling is big over there, isn't it, Tony?
It is.
Or do the sharks bite you?
We don't have the shark problem that the Aussies have. We have.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Isn't that something? But, yeah, so he's going to go over, and maybe, that could possibly sprout a nice group that we can take. We can fly out of D.C. probably halfway reasonably, I hope. I got Jim here on the line, the senior chief. He wants to move over there. Senior chief, you ready to go to New Zealand?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Marika and I are here. We just sign us up.
You ready to go? I'd love to go. Who is it? Gary Conboy. You know Gary Conboy?
No.
I'll introduce you to him. He's doing the one-day school with us this year, and has done some lessons with us. And Gary's a real good guy. He's going over there with some folks. So he'd love to put another group together. We put a trip or something and go over there.
Where in New Zealand? On the North Island or South Island?
Where are you, Tony?
North Island.
Where,
You
Tony?
need to see both.
The North Islands?
Where,
North
Tony?
Island, yes. Sorry, what was that?
Where in the North Island?
I'm in a place called Cambridge, about an hour and a half south of Auckland.
Yeah, we know where it is. Yeah.
And Marika makes good cookies, so you guys are going to get fat when she gets there.
Well, if you already are.
Why do you think I'm so fat? It's from eating Marika's cookies. They're so good I can't say no.
Hey, I'm just like you, Bobby.
She brings those cookies over there, and there's like no saying. I mean, even Jim, who was on this fantastic diet, didn't you have a cookie, Jim? I saw you eating it.
I did have a cookie. I can't turn down a cookie.
It probably set Jim back a month.
All right, gang. I really enjoyed tonight. I hope you did too. I hope you learned something. If there's no other questions, we're going to go ahead and call it a night. I think it was a lot of fun.
Bobby, I got a question.
Go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, how do you distinguish as a layperson whether there is any real benefit in the so-called advancements that they offer? Are they advancements or are they just marketing hype?
Well, yeah, that's an excellent question. And the facts are that it's both. Some of it is, and you got to be able to know, you got to have one or two ways. It's probably the same with any other industry. I mean, Jim and I happen to be PGA golf professionals. This is what we've done all our life. We played golf since we were little kids. And we know because we're in it. Just like Greg there, who's in the computer industry, well, you know, he really knows the difference. He says, hey, you know, that driver is cheaper, but you know what? It's got a really crummy hard drive in it. That thing's going to break in a year. So he knows the difference between the different components that are in there. So you have to have somebody to advise you that you can trust. So a perfect example, what shafts are in your irons right now? Do you know?
I wouldn't have a clue.
There you go. Well, you look and then just pop me off an email and say, here's what the shaft label says. It says this is the kind of shaft I'm using. And what brand golf clubs are they?
Yeah, I got conned. I bought some rocket balls.
Rocket balls.
Yeah, and biggest mistake of my life. I was playing Blaze before that.
Oh, you mean that's the new TaylorMade rocket ball? Is that the one you're talking about?
The old model. Yeah, the first one, the first model.
Yeah, we know some of those things like that. I mean, you know, I'm not a big fan of TaylorMade. They have some good things, of course, but they're very marketeers. But you still, I don't care what brand you go with. There's going to be some good and bad in them. You got to know which one you're getting and why. Some of the old Australian blades, remember, I used to love those clubs. And a blade is not necessarily a bad choice. Don't go for all the hype that, you know, you can't hit a blade. Well, that's malarkey. In fact, look right here at the brand new Callaway. Let me show you this. Now that's class right there. Look at this. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, I can't hit that. You know, that's a blade. Well, it's not a blade. It is caddy back. You see there's quite a bit of weight right here on the bottom part of the golf club. And if you look at the new Hot Pro irons, it's really not that much different. The big difference is this costs less money because it's made out of a mold, where here you've got a handmade product. So these are $9.99 for a set. The other one's $6.99. So you're talking $300. But there's no reason why you can't hit this golf club. There's no reason why you can't have, when you look at the shafts that come with it, look at this, 85 grams. See, when I was saying earlier about Denny, I said, you know, a 95-gram shaft for steel is excellent. They're looking 85 right here. Here, look at the shaft. Look at this, Denny. If you're still on, look at the Nippon. Here's your shaft right here, the Nippon, right? That's your shaft, or is it the 990 that I put in? I can't remember now. It's one of the two. Here's the Royal Project. The shaft is so important. You've got to have the right quality shaft. You really do. That's so important. And then the other very important part of the golf club that a really good player concerns himself with, oh, you son of a gun, this thing is, whoa, I'm telling you, it's like chasing my wife's cat. Anyway, see this? Look at this. See? The sole of that golf club, and let me see if we have a picture of the sole itself. Here we go. See that? Look how this is beveled a little bit right here on the leading edge, which is real good. It gives you a chance to get a little bit of shaft lean. Otherwise, that leading edge will just stick right in the ground. And then let's look at, from there, the muscle back, which is what, see, both these clubs are forged, but they'd call this more of a blade. Why? Because it just has a thinner sole. See that? But you see how this has a little more roundness to it? If I'm going to go through the ground, I want to go through the ground with the thinnest thing I can find, not the thickest thing I can find. See? And there's still weight on the bottom. Look. You know, so you can't hit this because it's a blade. No, it's that they make more profit selling you the other one because it comes out of a mold. It's easier to make, faster to make, and cheaper to make. They can sell it to you for more money. Does that answer your question? I put Tony in a coma.
It does. I was just thinking, Bobby, you know, a few months back you had a webinar with Raven Golf. Why shouldn't we simply be having components assembled?
Well, let me tell you something. You can get a component club, in a lot of cases, be much better off. Because here's the reason why. If you have somebody that has enough components that they can give you, like for instance, when I used to make a lot of golf clubs, I used to buy 50 sets at a time. So then I would take the heads out and I'd weigh them. And I'd make sure to cherry pick the heads that all were the proper weight. Because for instance, a 6-iron should be 257 grams. Now, if I've got a 6-iron there that's 260 grams, for whatever reason, they didn't file enough off or whatever, I'd set it to one side. And I'd cherry pick all the ones I wanted. And then if I had 3 or 4 sets out of the 50 that the weights were way off, I'd send them back and say, send me other ones. See, I sorted them out myself. You won't necessarily get that kind of attention from the typical manufacturing setup. I can't say that you won't, but, you know, I'm just telling you with that. Now, I can do the same thing where I buy a box of True Temper S300 shafts. I get a box of 150. Well, they're weight sorted. And their weight sortment is within 3 grams. So as far as I'm concerned, that's 9 grams. Because if the shaft should weigh 110 and it weighs 113, they say that's acceptable. Well, what if it's, instead of 110, it's 107? They'd say that's acceptable too. But if I go through the box of 150 shafts and I find 8 shafts that weigh exactly 110 grams, I find 8 shafts that weigh exactly 10 grams, I find 8 shafts, just as long as they all weigh the same. I don't care whether they're 113 or 108. As long as they weigh the same, all 8 of them. Then I've got 8 twin brothers and twin sisters. See? And then any of the ones that are sort of odd weight that I can't make a whole set with, I'd send them back. But I was buying a lot at a time. So if you're dealing with a guy that's making clubs in his garage at home and you're making one set at a time, you probably got a problem. But he can make up for it by putting lead powder in the neck. What you do is you take the shaft, once you glue it into the head, then you can take some lead powder. So let's say the head weight was short by 2 grams. Instead of 257 for the 6-iron was 255. I pour 2 grams worth of lead powder in there. I take a little cork, put it down the shaft, and then I pound it with this long metal post and pound it in there so it stays in there. Now I'm up to my 257 grams. But don't forget that 257 grams is now 2 grams heavy in the neck. And if I put weight near the neck, the club has a little bit of a draw bias. Capiche? But, I mean, we're splitting hairs here. That's why on tour, for instance, the guys wouldn't have the lead powder put in there. They don't mind it looking ugly. They'll put a little piece of lead tape on the bottom. And that's why you'll see that. And then they can put the lead tape where they want. Instead of putting it, let's say, if I'm putting weight in the neck of the golf club down here, they'll put it right here. Or they'll put it to the neck if they want to have a little bit of draw bias. Or they'll put it to the toe if they want a little bit of fade bias. They have the opportunity to put it wherever they want. It looks ugly, but they don't care. You know, the regular golfer goes, oh, man, my clubs look ugly. Now I have this lead tape all over it. You know, but that's... So, and then I can pick the grips. If I can pick 8 grips that all weigh exactly the same, if I got perfect head weights. I got perfect shaft weights. I got perfect grip weights. I do not have to frequency match that golf club. That set of golf clubs is going to come out perfect. Absolutely perfect. But it's a matter of cherry picking the components. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so the truth is we don't really know what we've got. And we're reliant upon whoever sells them to us to be conscientious enough to test them and then to tell us the truth rather
Right.
than just sell us them to them.
Well, here's a perfect example, and I'm going to get to your question one second here, David. I just saw your hand up. The case of Denny. When I fitted both Denny and Frankie Lassiter, and there was one other one. Anyway, I put all of them in that 950 Nippon shaft based on my knowledge of that shaft. They never even hit it out of the wagon. Now, they trusted me. I told them, I says, look, I wouldn't use the shaft that Callaway has put in this fitting wagon for this. This other shaft is far superior. Now, they might not know it. See, but I know it. And then when Denny got his clubs, if Denny remembers, I hit a shot, and you could hear the sound when I hit it. And then when I hit it with the shaft that was in the wagon, which was a 95-gram True Temper shaft. It's a good shaft. It's not a bad shaft, but it doesn't compare to that Nippon shaft. And I hit a shot with that. You could hear the sound, which is a little tinnier. It wasn't quite the same. Yeah, it's splitting hairs, but, I mean, that's the level, you know, a touring pro is not going to say, oh, I don't care, give me that tinny shaft. I mean, he's out there playing for his life. So you want to have the right shaft in your hand. So, yeah, you have to trust the guy that's you know, the guy fitting you and taking care of you. That's the whole idea. Let me see. Debbie, what was your question there, or is it Ben?
Yeah, no, it's me, Debbie.
Okay.
As you know, I have a rather slow swing speed.
Mm-hmm.
So can the new driver technology help me gain distance? And if that's the case, what would you recommend?
Loft, and more loft. Loft is your friend. You got, and there's one big problem. Henry Griffiths was a company that used to be really, really good at fitting and stuff. And they came up with a system once because, especially with the men, you know how the ego is, right? And they go, I want to hit an 8.5 degree driver. Well, guys would go crazy if they said, I'm giving you a 13 degree driver. Oh, no, that's too much loft. It was the right loft for the guy. You know that some of the guys on tour, some of the longest hitters are hitting 11 degree drivers. And a lot of people don't realize that. Chuck Howell, the third, he hits an 11 degree. What's the name of the other guy, Jim, with the shut face at the top?
Oh, Dustin Johnson.
Dustin Johnson hits it forever, 11 degree driver. So if you're not getting enough club head speed, that's the reason for hitting a hybrid rather than a 2-iron, because you can't swing the club fast enough, so you can't get enough underspin on the ball to get it up in the air. So when you get a hybrid and you move the center of gravity back, that adds height, and up in the air it goes. So the same thing with your driver. If you're not swinging your driver any faster than your 5-wood, for instance, the driver might even go shorter than the 5-wood because you can't hold the ball in the air long enough. So you might need a driver that has maybe 15 degrees loft. So going back to Henry Griffiths, what Henry Griffiths did for a while is they put dots. They put one dot on the bottom of the head for an 8.5, 2 dots for a 10.5, 3 dots for an 11.5, 4 dots for a 12.5, for instance, 5 dots, so that there were dots there so it couldn't feed into the psyche of the golfer. And they were willing to hit a 5 dot, but they weren't willing to hit a 13.5 degree.
I don't think that would bother me.
Well, the ladies, it's not as bad. I'm talking about the guys with all the machismo, you know, right, where they go, what are you saying, I'm old, I can't hit, I got to hit. I'm just telling you, depending on your swing, a 13.5 degree driver is going to hold the ball in the air longer. Airplanes go faster than cars. As soon as that ball hits the ground, you've got friction, and it's going to slow it down. Unless it's summertime and it's hot and it's hard, you know. So that's well, we can experiment with that the next time I see you. We can try and hit something that, you know, you might find that your 5-wood is actually hitting the ball further. Well, what I can do is go into Golf Works, where we were over here before, and maybe I can find a driver head Watch. Let's try this right here. Driver head 15 degrees. Let's see if they have such an animal. Well, that's nice. I'll find one, and if I can find a driver head that I think's worthwhile, it's at least 15 degrees, then I might just get one, put a shaft in, and let you hit it.
Okay.
See, this only has 9.5, 10.5. It's just not high enough.
Right.
See?
See that.
Yeah, okay, so I'll look into that for you. Happy
Okay.
to. All right,
Great.
dear.
Thank you.
All right, gang. Well, I enjoyed it. What do you think, Jim? Do you have a good time?
I had a great time. It's a
Where's
good show.
Samantha? Is Samantha there?
She's upstairs.
Sammy! Sammy's his dog. Sammy's friendly. Sammy's a friendly. All right, gang. I hope you learned something tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm going to send out some links to some of you. Tony, I'm going to send one to you and a couple other folks here where you had some questions. And I've got some stuff you can look at. In fact, I'm going to try and send everybody a link to that shaft report, because if you read that, you'll know more than 99% of golfers on the planet about a golf shaft. All right? All right, gang. Enjoyed it. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
Jim.